Awesome. Well, welcome everyone to our webinar on the World Nuclear University Summer Institute. My name is Gabrielle Psotka. I'm a waste operations specialist at Canadian Nuclear Laboratories, and I'm really excited to host this webinar today with Isis and Sunny. So my background is in environmental engineering, and I specialize in waste characterization, decommissioning, and waste management operations. And I'm also an alumni of the Summer Institute from 2022 when it was in Spain. And I'm the president of the Chalk River North American Young Generation in Nuclear chapter. It's a bit of a mouthful. And this webinar is put on by NAYGN. And please sign up for our mailing list if you like to hear more about the great events that NAYGN hosts. So today, like I said, we have both Isis and Sunny. I will do a brief intro for both of our guest speakers, and then we're going to do kind of a back and forth question and answer. And then after that, I'd like to get any questions from the audience. So if you have questions, I think you can put it in the chat as we go along, or you could save it up to the end. So that's kind of the format today. And yeah, thanks again for joining us. So starting with Isis, Leslie. So thanks, Isis. So she was appointed the director of the World Nuclear University in August 2021. And she leads the strategic mission to inspire and develop the competency of future leaders in the nuclear industry by delivering innovative world-class programs, by facilitating international partnerships to drive equity, inclusion, and diversity of thought. Those are very important topics we talk about in the Summer Institute, the diversity, equity, inclusion. Isis has been an enthusiastic nuclear professional for more than 15 years with a background in international nuclear security and non-proliferation. And she's previously worked with research and safety institutions like Oak Ridge National Laboratory, the World Institute of Nuclear Security, and the IAEA. So thank you so much, Isis, for joining us. And I'll also introduce our second guest, Sunny Mustafa. So Sunny is the senior manager of nuclear oversight, where he and his team independently assess operations, maintenance, and cross-functional programs at Ontario Power Generation nuclear facilities, uh, advanced inspection and maintenance services, and nuclear sustainability services. So Sunny has a proven track record of leading high-performing teams. It's great to have you here today in your experience, and driving operational excellence. Um, with his specialized technical skills in many areas from operations and human performance, regulatory affairs, and project management, he brings a diverse blend of expertise and experience to protecting the core. Sunny was a co-founder of Canada's second oldest NAYGN chapter, so that's great to hear, a long time ago, and even you were a Canadian regional chair, which is great to have you on a call back with us. And he's an alumni of the World Nuclear University Summer Institute, and since then he's been a faculty member and has delivered presentations to other institutes that have occurred since he was an alumni. So thanks again to both of you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us, Gabby.
And just to start, I thought, Isis, you could give a presentation on the Summer Institute to kind of give us a background on it, and then we'll go into the Q&A afterwards.
Great, thank you. So yes, as Gabby says, I am lucky enough to be the director of the World Nuclear University. If you just give me 2 seconds to share my screen, I've got some PowerPoints which will hopefully tell you a little bit more about the World Nuclear University as a whole and about the role of the Summer Institute within our programming. So we, as Gabby has said, both her and Sunny have been alumni of the Summer Institute, and I am really privileged to get to spend 5 weeks every year with such amazing people. So the role of the WNU is essentially, our goal is to empower the next generation of nuclear leaders. We all know the global context in which we are operating. So We need the expansion of new nuclear power, and we also need to operate in the long term in order to reach the climate change commitments that our companies and our organizations have made. And within that context, we have the World Nuclear Association, who is the main industry organization seeking to promote nuclear energy and represent the companies that constitute our industry. Now, the challenge that we have within the World Nuclear University is that within the next 5 years, it's anticipated that around 26% of the global nuclear force will either retire or move away from the industry. And given that we are hoping that there will be this expansion, and given that we are also seeing more and more plants which are being licensed to operate to 60 years and beyond, where will the leaders come from who will be able to lead us through these changes? And that is where we come in, the World Nuclear University. So we are the nuclear industry's leading professional development organization. And we focus on programs that, as Gabby says, facilitate international partnerships. We think it is really important for the global nuclear community to come together, to learn together, and to exchange ideas, perspectives, and different ways of doing things so that we can learn and grow together. We were founded in 2003 by the World Nuclear Association, the International Atomic Energy Agency, WANO, and the OECD NEA. And so we are 20 years this year. We're really happy, and we are having a couple of celebrations to celebrate the fact that we've got to this milestone. But we think that it is time to start ensuring that we are involving all of those supporters over the years, including the alumni, back into our programs. So all of our programs are dependent on tuition. We are a not-for-profit organization, and we are supported by the World Nuclear Association, who provide much of the financial support for the staffing and other administrative areas that we need, such as the website. So our programs are funded through tuition and are dependent on industry cooperation. So the majority of our speakers who join us will fund their own out-of-pocket expenses and their time. And they do this in order to give back and ensure that the transfer of knowledge is happening from the current leaders of the organization to our younger generation who are coming up and who will need to lead the organizations into the future. Our vision is essentially to make sure that everyone who comes through our programs is able to tackle the complex global challenges ahead. And we think that this is kind of at the nexus between the individual, the nuclear industry as a whole, and also the global community. So nothing we do is in isolation. Leadership is contextual, and we need to make sure that everybody who is going to be leading the industry in the future understands that context and understands their place within it. So we have three main value drivers that we focus on. We try and make sure that all of our programs include mentoring lectures by international topic experts. None of none of our programs are staffed by people from one perspective or one country. We try and make sure that we have a wide variety of different perspectives presented. Our trainings are holistic. They're tailored to ensure a comprehensive understanding of the world and how the different parts of the industry fit together and how that industry as a whole fits into the global context. And of course, we like to provide unique networking opportunities, which will provide lifelong relationships. And the fact that Sunny and I have known each other since 2009 is testament to that. So our programs, one of our main pillars that we focus on is leadership, and the leadership model that we use is based on the Ancona leadership model, which has four main capabilities, which are visioning, relating, sense making, and inventing. And we think it's really important that everybody is given a safe space in which to practice these four different capabilities, and we do that through providing the programs. We believe in a new leadership archetype. We don't think that leadership comes just from the head of an organization, but we believe that every individual within an organization has a part to play. And there are various things listed here, I won't go through them, which are required to make sure that that leadership is effective and works for the organization in which they find themselves. So I would really love to throw to you guys the question what good leadership looks like. I have to stop sharing in order to let my colleagues join in as well. But I think it would be really valuable to have a really short discussion on what we think good leadership looks like. So if you guys could pop in the chat what comes to mind if we say good leadership, that would be great. And I will ask Gabby and Sunny if they have any thoughts on what they would like to share with us.
Sure, I could start us off with a quick aspect. When I joined the Summer Institute, I found we had a lot of group work where we were given these projects that were complex, and we had to work with different people in our group. Like someone was a regulator, someone was a nuclear operator, someone was a lawyer, and I found leadership was encouraging everyone to participate and have their say, which is something I really learned in the Summer Institute. As you have your looking at the diversity, equity, and inclusion aspect, everyone has such different viewpoints and life experiences and opinions, and you really need all of that to come up with a kind of cohesive solution. So I really think being a leader to me is one aspect is really supporting others to be an effective team. I don't know.
It's
What
wonderful.
about you, Sunny?
That's the right thing. We are teaching the right thing if that's what's come out of it. Sunny.
Thank you, Gabby, and thank you, Isis. And I'll say first off, Gabby and Matt, thank you for the opportunity for me to, in many ways, return home. And Isis, I can't think of a better individual to direct and guide and mentor the next generation of nuclear leaders around the world other than you. So thank you for this opportunity and thank you for this conversation. And what I'll share with the team here is, similar to my remarks when I was at WNU in Valencia, speaking to the best and brightest from around the world, is for me leadership. And I really learned this at the WNU. I acquired the language around what my leadership model might mean. And I had an amazing mentor who introduced me to the concept of servant leadership. And up to that point, I really didn't have a word to kind of conceptualize what I felt I needed to do and how I needed to serve and how I needed to create value for the people that I work with, for the community that I was part of, the corporation that I am part of, and the industry that I'm involved with. And so leadership really involves able to help people grow, to be in service of making, our companies, our communities, ourselves, and the people that we interact with better, and help them grow and help them achieve. So I think one of the most rewarding things for me is that life lesson has translated and made a powerful impact, not just in my professional career, but also in my personal career. And, I carry that with me everywhere I go. And I'm incredibly grateful to the WNU for giving me that opportunity and that insight into life.
Great. Thanks, Sunny. I see most people are really quiet in the chat, which is understandable. This is a webinar, and sometimes question and answer sessions are a little bit tricky. We do have one comment from Rosie Archard, who says she sees good leadership as passionate, willing to take risks based on team knowledge, but rational and can play devil's advocate effectively. So I think that's a really interesting comment, and thank you for that, Rosie. I appreciate appreciate the feedback. So yeah, as I was saying, I will share my screen again in a second, but if anybody else has any thoughts that they would like to add on what they think of as good leadership, please do pop it in the chat and we can always return to it later. Just let me share where we got to. Sorry, technology is always a treat, right? So yeah, so the WNU is a part, we think, of a lot of the leaders of today. They're moving into leadership positions, and it's been a part of the leadership journey of many of those people. And we hope also maybe it can be a part of yours too. So our programs contain 4 different key elements. We think all of them are very important to developing a kind of broad overview perspective of the industry in which we work. So one is that there is a multidisciplinary curricula. Number 2 is that we have a number of different international experts giving different opinions from different perspectives. 3 is experiential learning activities. Gabby just mentioned that there are a lot of working group activities, and these are really time to embed what you have learnt during the plenary sessions, to understand and process it, and to work together to tackle some quite challenging, challenging challenges. And the fourth, sorry, is that we try and incorporate a number of technical visits on every program. We know that a lot of people working in the nuclear industry work in technical jobs, but also many of them work, as Gabby was saying, in regulation or law and have very little exposure to the actual technical side of things. So we think it's really important that people get to see these facilities, get to go through the process of getting into their hazmat suits, getting dosimeters, getting through all of the security, just to see it for their own eyes. I think that's an important element to these programs. Our programs also include mentors. So Sunny touched on this when he was mentioning what he thought good leadership was. And we think mentoring is a very fundamental part of any growth mindset. So many of you will have experience of this in your career and in your life in general. But at the Summer Institute and many of our other programs, we provide these expert mentors to help support with the group work and the experiential tasks. And the idea behind this is that they are people who have been leaders in the past, who have much experience of the industry, and who are able to help pass that experience and some of that knowledge on to our participants. So we've had some really amazing people mentoring us in the past. They've included the former commissioner of the NRC, the managing director of WANO, the former CEO of Exelon, for example, and many others. And a lot of them are, I'm pretty sure, still in touch with some of the people they've been mentoring over the years, even many years later. So it really does form a lifelong bond with some pretty amazing people. Our speakers, as I mentioned, come from all areas of the nuclear industry and from as many countries as we possibly can. We thank our speakers from the bottom of our heart for joining us. They, as I said, fund themselves and do it in their own time in order to give something back to the nuclear industry as a whole, because they recognize that often the people who attend our programs at the WNU are the people who will go on to be the future leaders of the industry. And it's important to make sure that they get this holistic perspective. So, for example, in 2022, when Gabby was with us, we had DG Grossi of the IAEA, we had President Romina Valshi of the CNSC, and the CEO of Cameco, various other important people join us to give their perspective on leadership and on the nuclear industry as a whole and how that fits into the global context. So you really do get to hear from really impressive people. And honestly, for us, it's not the hearing from them that's the important part. Many of these people have presentations online which you can listen to, but the opportunity to network with them, to talk to them on a more individual level, to ask them questions about what they have been through in their career, get their perspectives on what challenges your organization or you personally might be facing as some of the most important aspects of the program. The attendees are each of our programs has a different set of criteria to apply and to join us. But generally speaking, they are high potential employees from a variety of different backgrounds in the nuclear industry. And the aim is to attract mid-career professionals who've been identified as future leaders and who wish to develop themselves. However, irrespective of background or culture or organization, we have a few things that we really focus on when we are looking into who is going to be attending our programs. And that is that they have fundamental character traits such as respect, inclusion, critical thinking, a society-oriented mindset, and are adaptable and flexible. So if that sounds like you, please consider applying for a future iteration of the Summer Institute, perhaps. Our core programs, we run a number of programs during the... Oh, sorry, is someone trying to say something? No? Okay, sorry, I can't see you guys. It's hidden behind the screen. So yeah, we have a number of core programs. We have the Summer Institute, of course, of which Gabby and Sunny are both alumni. We also have a Strategic Leadership Academy and the School on Radiation Technologies, all of which are our regularly held mentored programs. And this is kind of what our calendar looks like. So the main thing that we wanted to focus on today was the Summer Institute. This is a very comprehensive program. It's 5 weeks and it rotates around the world. As Gabby mentioned, last year it was in Spain. This year it's going to be in Japan, and the next iteration will be in Brazil, which we're really excited by. And the program is essentially a mix of lectures, mentored group work, and industry-focused projects with a few site visits involved as well. The leadership aspect, as I mentioned earlier, is focused on this Ancona model, which includes sense-making, relating, visioning, and inventing. And one thing that we have been learning is that really mainly people learn by doing, or they learn by communicating with others. Only very little is absorbed if you are literally just listening to content. So we try and focus our program on making sure that there is as much experiential learning as we possibly can. Obviously, there needs to be a certain element of content because we need to make sure that everybody has the baseline understanding to be able to communicate about these things. But it makes for an interesting program, and no 2 days are the same. There are many different things to be doing, and we incorporate role play, case studies, uh, invented challenges, various other things to make sure that there are different challenges being set each day. The 2022 iteration included 70 fellows from 35 different countries, and I will talk a little bit about the IAEA-sponsored participants in a while, but this is just a general overview of what to expect from a program like the Summer Institute. And as I mentioned, the Osaka program, unfortunately, the applications have closed, but I will show you a short video at the end of this about the upcoming iteration in 2024. And the Alumni Winter Camp is a new invention. We actually held the first one last year, but it will be an annual 4-day program which will bring together different cohorts of the Summer Institute alumni for some focused group work. It is very small and will be a competitive program to get into, but the aim is to make sure that all different alumni get the chance to come at least once and meet with people who are also alumni, but from a different cohort to their own. So it's fun. The Strategic Leadership Academy, I'll touch on very quickly. It's a virtual program focused on long-term operations. And we have the School on Radiation Technologies also, which is a 2-week program focused on nuclear science and technology applications. And yep, the School on Radiation Technologies applications are open for that. So it will be held in South Africa this year. It is essentially a mini summer institute, but focused on radiation technologies rather than on nuclear energy itself. So it's an interesting program. And yes, I mentioned that I would touch on the IAEA funding. We have 2 different tuition types to attend our programs. One is the company funded, where it's pretty straightforward. Your company nominates you and pays the tuition fees. The tuition fees are very carefully calculated to basically cover the costs. We are not a for-profit organization, so we're not trying to make any money from our programs, but we do try and make sure that we can cover the costs associated with putting the programs on. And the other tuition funding is the IAEA Technical Cooperation funding. This sponsors a fraction of the participants to each of our programs every year. And we think it's really important to make sure that we bring together not only people from developed nuclear countries, but from nuclear countries who are currently developing. And that means some of them will have just a regulator so far. Some of them will have a well-established nuclear power program, but perhaps not yet be fully incorporated into the international community. So that is the 2 different tuition types that we have. And I would like to set you guys a challenge before I go. And that challenge is to make the most of any opportunities that you have to learn about leadership, learn about yourself, and learn about what style you have and adapt that to the context of your own organization and your own position, because leadership is very contextual. But as Sunny says, it's very important to have the knowledge and understanding for your own personal framework and then work to try and fit that in into your leadership style, even if you aren't currently in a leadership position. So Yes, I see that there has been some stuff going on in the chat whilst I've been talking. But before we go to that, if nobody minds, we're going to play a really short video. So I will ask Raquel to share it for us. Thanks, Gabby. Sorry, my colleague Raquel has kindly put together a video about the 2024 iteration. So.
For me, it was a transformative experience. Young leaders from all over the world.
It's an incredible opportunity.
Good is the exchange of nuclear knowledge.
And it's a really amazing program.
For people like me, young professionals,
Everyone out there who is aspiring to be a leader in the nuclear industry.
To come here and learn first of all from each other.
Different speakers with precious experiences and knowledge.
And just to learn how other people are working in teams.
Many people say that there is a before and an after the Summer Institute.
There's a difference between leadership in general and nuclear leadership.
To really make a difference in this world.
now get ready. And start your leadership journey.
Wow, thanks, Raquel. I've not seen that one, but I am particularly enthusiastic about Brazil because it's where my family come from. So I'm looking forward to going back. Anyway, yes, so that was mainly about the Summer Institute and about the WNU. I see that there is lots of chat in the chat. So Sunny, would you like to to talk about it? I see that you responded to everybody, or maybe I missed something. No, hang on. Yes, you responded early on, but
Yeah, thanks, Isis. And I would say some really good comments in the chat there. And William, I'll just share that when we had the opportunity to host some NAYGN events early on in my career, I was really struck by the CNO, who then went on to become chairman of the WANO, talking about how nuclear is a people business and how integral it really is to building and establishing trust. And I see, Priyanka, you have some really good comments about how trusting individuals' capabilities and building a cohesive team and creating an organizational culture that fosters development and growth is so important. And what I'll just add maybe is that one key takeaway, and Ingmar made this comment as well, that we operate in a very special and unique industry. So there are many aspects of leadership that one can learn about, that's all over, and books are written all the time. But I would say what makes our industry particularly unique is the obligation that each and every one of us has to protect the core. And obviously there are nuclear safety implications there as well. But as you work through your leadership journey in the nuclear industry, you realize that protecting the core means also protecting your understanding of what your leadership is, what your integrity is, what your authentic approach to life and leadership means. But it also means about protecting your people and helping them grow and helping them develop. You will be, challenged at various aspects of your career, and the opportunity to distill that into how are my actions driving to protect the core. How are they driving to protect people, the community, and the environment is as an essential attribute that shouldn't be lost. And so maybe that's a comment that I'll make there and open it up to any others.
And Sunny, do you find, I know in the Institute we covered topics from like enrichment and mining and nuclear operators and waste management. And I think maybe that's one of the the good aspects of the program is you kind of get a whole view of the nuclear industry and get out of your small bubble of maybe what you work in. Did you find that as part of the institute, that it opened up your experience of the nuclear industry as a whole?
Yeah, I would say, definitely the aperture that I had was definitely open and expanded through the WNU. And I think, Gabby, you mentioned this, and Isis, you spoke to this as well, about the importance of equity, diversity, and inclusion, both for our industry and broadly for our culture. And I think that's particularly important. One of the things that really resonated for me for the WNU was, I was surrounded by 100 people from all over the world. Different cultures, different languages, different businesses, different industry aspects. But the one commonality that really struck me was how similar all of these individuals were. And that really reinforced the importance that one needs to develop and building relationships and understanding, and having people that have a diverse perspective, diverse industry experience can only help you understand what are some of the challenges and what are some of the opportunities that exist in our industry broadly. So I think that was a key takeaway. I was one of those nuclear engineers. I was doing my master's in nuclear engineering, and I was I had a pretty technical bent, but I was interacting with people that had a business background, had a law background, had a strategy background, and those conversations. How business is conducted, not just in a North American context, but broadly across the world, really stuck with me. And I think it's translated in my interest and my passion to work in the global nuclear industry. And, I've been fortunate to be shaped by that experience. It's what I bring to the WANO Independent Nuclear Safety Oversight Working Group as the vice chair now of that working group, and the ability to influence nuclear safety across the globe, I think has its roots in the experience that I had initially at the WNU with that international cohort of leaders.
For sure. And do you still have contact with a lot of the people you met at the university? Like, I know for me personally, we have a WhatsApp group with all the fellows that attended in the summer, and almost every day someone's messaging like, well, I told today, hey, I'm doing this webinar, join. Or someone said, oh, I'll be in Sweden. Is anyone going to be there? Someone says, does anyone know about this technology? And someone will reply, do you still have connection with your past, the fellows that you met with way back when?
Absolutely. And when you say way back when, let me just say it was way back then. Social media was, I would say, just in its infancy. There were very few of us that had Facebook. But, I will say that was the first platform that really brought us together. And I will say this to you, Isis and I go way back. I have many of my friends and fellows from 14 years ago that every time I talk to them, I get a message from them. It brings such a tremendous joy and smile to my face, because it takes me back in time to that wonderful experience that was WNU. And one of the amazing things about WNU is how they've really worked to sustain those relationships over, I would say, decades, right? And we're at a decade and a half now, almost 2 decades, and those relationships sustain us. And periodically. So absolutely, an incredible opportunity. And I'll just maybe leave with one last thought on that point, is that I was preparing for a public hearing in 2011 for license renewal for NAYGN. And as I was driving in to that hearing on the radio, we heard about the accident that had in Fukushima. And in that moment, we've always been told that we are a highly interconnected global industry. But in that moment, I was reflecting upon my fellows that were from Japan, that I had spent so much time with them, and so much, so many fond memories. And my immediate thought was, how are they and how are they doing? And I will tell you, the first 24, 48 hours when I sent a note to them and I didn't get a response back was one of the most difficult moments for me, because I realized this was an event on the other side of the world that was happening, and it was happening to someone that I knew personally. And so that has a really profound impact on me, and how interconnected all of us are really in this industry, and how an event or an opportunity in one part of the world really interconnects us. So, you may have heard of 6 degrees of separation. WNU shrinks that to 3 or less. So I'll just leave that with you. And I'm really glad we have the ability now to leverage technology to have this conversation, which we didn't have in 2009. Thanks.
No, thanks very much. It shows how you're building lifelong relationships that you can always connect with or pull on throughout your career. So that's great to know. And I was curious if you would recommend, like, Sunny, like at what age or stage of someone's career would you recommend that they join the Institute? Like, did you find you attended at a good time, and from there you kind of built your skills to become the leader you are today?
I'll say this, anytime at the WNU, anytime in your career, if you have the opportunity, jump on that at any time. So I would say I was fairly early in my career. I was within 4 years of the industry, but I had sort of had a lot of leadership opportunities. NAYGN was almost sort of my lab to kind of hone my leadership skills. But I was also working through my career in acquiring additional positions of responsibility and leadership. And I would suggest, I think it outlines, sort of mid-career and whatever that may be for you. I think that's probably appropriate. But I think the key thing is having the right mindset, because the lessons and the experience that you get at WNU are in a large function what you bring to the table, and what you're able to share with your colleagues and your fellows. So I think, when you have leadership experience, when you've actually had the opportunity to have some really tough, critical conversations, teams, with people, I think that adds a different flavor. So what I will say is every time is the right time. But I think the key thing is, are you ready to absorb the lifelong lessons that you are going to acquire, and then be able to apply throughout your career? And as long as you're ready for that, you take away those nuggets with you, I think any time is optimal for you to do this.
That's great. And you have to.
Hopefully that made sense.
No, for sure. And I like the aspect of being ready to participate and put yourself out there and be open to learn. I know I had a notebook there, and throughout the Institute, we had to kind of self-reflect and see what are some maybe leadership qualities you want to work on, or where do we see ourselves in the future. So you want to be at that stage where you're excited to kind of see what's going forward and how to improve on yourself. I know through the program, I got a lot more confidence in myself. Originally, I was like, oh, I'm not that, maybe I'm okay at my job, but the Institute just kind of gave me that energy and confidence that I can kind of continue in the nuclear industry and be a leader. So yeah, no, great to hear that anytime.
Yeah, and Gabby, just one other thing. Yeah, and I would say one other thing, I think that, obviously the fellows that you are surrounded with, they form your immediate peer network, right? You will lean on them, much like, my colleagues from Japan did during that event, on us, and vice versa. But I will say that, the level and the amazing speakers that are brought in, industry leaders, and I would say the mentors, and Isis and Raquel do an amazing job facilitating that community environment. And those mentors that you have, I had the privilege of being a mentor for the week that I was there. It is definitely a highlight of my career, because what happens is you're able to establish a relationship that far outlives your time at the WNU. So I have in the past, and still do, reach out to one of my mentors now. And we're talking 14 years since, about challenges, concerns, thoughts, advice. And then you have this group of people that you mentor, that you were mentored by, that you can tap into, and they get to share their insight and experience with you. So that node that you have in your network just expands exponentially. So I think that's one of the great unstated benefits of the WNU.
For sure, and I find it's nice you're there for, I guess now it's 5 weeks. I think it used to be 6 weeks, but because it's 5 weeks, you're away from your kind of day-to-day home life and going to work, and you're kind of in a new place with these people, and it really gives you time to develop yourself and work with these mentors and build those relationships. I think that's another benefit. It's not like it's a weekend course and you go home. It's like you're really immersed in the program. That's good.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a saying in strategy, you have to delineate between taking the time to be in the business and taking time to be working on the business. And really, this is the opportunity for you to be working on yourself, your leadership journey, and your industry. And I would say, it is almost in many ways a sabbatical from your real day-to-day life, but it is an opportunity for you to go reflect and come out of it a better nuclear professional, and I would say a better human being.
For sure. No, awesome. And if people on the call, if you want to start putting questions in the chat, I can kind of start addressing some of them. So please keep putting them in while we're kind of getting to the near end of this webinar. But yeah, Isis, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how in the program we learn about like our leadership styles and how everyone is kind of unique. I know at one exercise we had to sit in 4 parts of the room depending on this questionnaire we took, and throughout the institute we kept referring back to those 4 categories because some of us are more analytical and some are more dominant. Did you want to talk a little bit about that and how that's kind of reflected throughout the program?
Sure. So actually, that's called the DISC model. It's a very, very basic assessment of people's main dominant personality traits. And the idea behind that actually got carried away a little bit by the cohort at the Summer Institute. I think it resonated quite strongly with a lot of people. But the main idea behind that is just to give people an awareness of how they may be perceived by other people and an awareness of their own tendencies. So we all have tendencies towards one particular leadership style or another. And sometimes it's really useful to be able to understand what your go-to option is in stressful situations and to be able to think about whether that might be the most effective way of doing things, because leading is often very contextual and it also depends on who you are leading. So if you are managing 2 different people, they may have 2 very different styles and may require 2 very different feedback styles in order to get the best out of them. And understanding your own, not biases, that's not the right word, but your own preconceptions and the way that you operate can help you to understand how other people also operate and to therefore give them the feedback in a way which will be the most effective for them. We all have areas that we can improve, right? So being told about how to do that kindly and in the most effective way can be a really useful trait. But I know that the DISC model, it is available for free online. I think if you just type in DISC model, and you can take the test. I think it's maybe 10 questions or so, and it will give you a very broad overview of your own kind of predispositions. I know that a lot of organizations within the industry also do personality tests for their staff members, and that's one thing we are hoping to incorporate this year. We're going to be asking everybody to let us know if they've already been through these assessment mechanisms, because I think it can help you learn a lot about yourself. But at the WNU, we believe that learning that about yourself isn't enough. You need to be given the space and the time and the opportunities to make changes, to practice these things, to say, okay, today I'm going to try and be a little bit less controlling. I'm a very controlling person. So, and it's not enough to know that I am a controlling person. I need to be able to practice ceding some of that responsibility, or maybe coming at things from a different perspective, or maybe understanding how different cultures will do things. So I can understand the context in which I'm functioning. So that's kind of the idea behind a lot of this kind of self-reflection work that we do at the Summer Institute. It's so that you are aware of who you are as a person and how to play up the good bits about that, and also to work on those parts which maybe aren't such useful responses.
And I like the aspect of being able to practice, because if you're in your real job day to day, it might be hard to kind of practice some of those things if you're in a really high pressure environment. But at WNU, you're given these, case studies to work on. That's not like has to be done. There's a deadline or like, for actual work. So it's a great way to practice those skills in like a lower pressure environment, I find.
Great. The idea is really to create a safe space for people to be able to experiment and innovate and come at things from a different perspective. If you're given a work task, often, as you say, you have a deadline, you have something that needs to be achieved within a certain amount of time, and you have to do that as quickly and efficiently as possible because it's a business. That's the way we work. But it is really useful to be given some space to think about things from different perspectives. Sunny. Oh. Sunny, did you raise your hand?
Oh, did we lose you, Sunny?
I'm not sure whether it's my internet or Sunny, but sadly I think it might be Sunny's.
Yeah. Just picking up on that thread. What you. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, let me restart that. So I was just going to say, picking up on that particular thread, Isis and Gabby, about the key takeaway that WNU gives you. It gives you a set of skills that you and WNU with your toolkit that has practical applications once you leave WNU. And in my case, WNU gave me the information, the ability, the drill, the training on communication and public communication. And I know NAYGN in particular, when we were starting off, public communication was a big focus area for us. So, the sessions that we had, the practice that we had on how to deliver effective communication in a public context was incredibly helpful for me and the NAYGN team when we started doing public hearings that interveners were asking. I was armed with a lot more information and a lot more international context that I could share with the NAYGN team, but also in the public hearing. And I will just say that level of confidence that you acquire from the knowledge and the conversations that you have and the practice that you have at WNU, you will never know when you will need to be able to draw on it. But when you do, you go, wow, I really appreciate I have that opportunity to practice that at WNU, because it'll come out in all sorts of places that you may not even anticipate when you're there.
That's great. And I think what Sunny has just said really speaks to what he mentioned earlier, which is that the WNU can provide a framework, and that framework can be as amazing as we can make it, but the people that really make the program special and amazing are the participants and the speakers. So it really does depend on what you guys bring to the table, because if you come and you are focused and you are ready to reflect on yourself, you're ready to work with other people, you're ready to form these bonds, then that is fantastic. It doesn't work so well for people that aren't ready to do that. So
Oh, for sure. Keep your questions coming in the chat. We have about 10 minutes left. Just on a other kind of side tangent, I just want to mention that when you're doing your performance appraisals for your company, in terms of reflecting on the work you did for the year, you might want to put in that appraisal that you're looking to attend the Summer Institute in the future. That's what I did previously. I put it on my performance appraisal for about 4 years, I think. And a couple rounds I didn't get accepted, but the year of Spain I got accepted and selected by my company. So it was important that I told my management of my company that I was interested in this development opportunity. So yeah, I highly recommend you kind of think about that. Even if you don't get selected the first year, just keep it in mind for the future.
yeah, we've heard about quite a lot of people actually who applied numerous years to their organization. I know many organizations have a very selective process that you have to go through before we even see the applications at the WNU. And I think the caliber of people that come to the Summer Institute is testament to how effective these screening processes are within an organization. But if anyone is thinking about it, do reach out to us. I will pop our email address in the chat so you can just reach out and talk to us. But do reach out to us, find out more about the programs, find out how they could fit for your personal development. And yeah, they're great. I wish I could attend one, but I'm always organizing them, so they won't let me. It's a shame. The other thing actually I did want to mention on the diversity and inclusion side of things is that I know that it is very tricky for women in particular who are in the mid-career kind of range, because often they have started young families, and 5 weeks away from your family seems like an awfully long time, and it can be really tricky not only to separate yourself from your family, but also to have a partner who you can rely on to look after that family whilst you are gone. And it is a long time. We are aware of it. I myself have 2 very small children, so leaving them for 6 weeks every year is, well, 5 weeks now, but I have to go out early, so it's more like 6. And it's difficult, but I think many of our attendees who did it in previous years and took the chance and left their families have not regretted it. I think they've all found it to be a really useful and rewarding experience. So if it is something that you are concerned about because you have a young family at home, reach out to us. We can put you in touch with some alumni who have done it and who have been through it, and who can maybe give you some pointers on how to arrange life so that it is possible to do. Because yeah, as I say, it can be a logistical nightmare, but it's definitely worth it if this is a career that you are looking to spend the next 20 years in, or even if you are just hoping to move into a leadership position and want to understand a bit more about yourself and the industry as a whole.
Awesome. Thank you, Isis. That's a really good point people might be concerned about. So thank you for addressing that. And I see there's one question in the chat. Where can we find more information about these programs? So you're going to put in the email, and I assume online there's lots of information on how to apply.
Yeah, I can put in the website as well so that everybody has access to that. The website is actually undergoing development, so it is a little tricky to navigate at the moment, and it often takes you to separate websites for each of the programs. So for example, there is a separate website for the Summer Institute, which gives you a lot more in-depth information about that. But I will also put my email address in the chat just so that everybody has that and can reach out to me. I can't, it seems, talk and type at the same time, so.
Cool. And Sunny, any kind of last thoughts? I guess we have 5 minutes left that maybe haven't been mentioned yet.
Yeah, well, that's I could talk all day about WNU and how profound of an experience it is. But what I will say as a parting thought is, it is a significant investment that you will make in the WNU, and so I think, as with all good leadership books, and this concept was introduced to me at WNU, was you need to have a crystal clear understanding of your why. So why you want to participate, why you want to be a leader, why you want to do this, and what you are going to do as a result for yourself, for your company, for your country when you come back, for your community, integral part. And WNU will shape and define how you do those things. So I would just suggest, do a lot of good self-reflection. I know people have those assessments out there. They're great. But, have that clarity of your why, your purpose. And I hope that will be something that will sustain you on your journey as you go through this. And I do hope that our paths cross again. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'll put my information here. Send me a note. I'm happy to talk to people both inside and outside of our industry. So looking forward to the conversations. Thank you.
Sorry. And sorry, thank you, Sunny, for that. And any last thoughts, Isis, before we close on your end?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for you guys for hosting this. It's been a real pleasure to reconnect with you, Gabby and Sunny as well. And if anyone has any questions at all, please do reach out. We do think at the WNU that nuclear is going to be vitally important in our future. And we aren't going to have a nuclear industry unless we have the right people. So keep us posted. Let us know how you are getting on with things, and do contemplate coming to the WNU programs. We think they have a lot to offer.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Sunny and Isis.
Yep.
And yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity, Gabby and Matt, and thank you for facilitating the ability to see my good friend Isis. As always, pleasure, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys. Lovely to see you. Bye.
Bye.